The Quran is unmistakable. It frankly, as a revolutionary guide always is, assails them by saying, إِنَّكُمْ وَمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ حَصَبُ جَهَنَّمْ أَنْتُمْ لَهَا وَارِدُونَ.
ينصر الله من ينصره، وإلا كيف نصر الإمام الخميني ومن معه؟ لماذا لم ينصر غيره؟ أما من يظن أن النصر بعد أن يئس من نصر الله فأخذ يبحث عن النصر عند ميشيل والبعث العراقي، فكيف يزعم بعدها أنه يدعو للإسلام وأنه مسلم؟
Fortunately, the ulama in Iran represented almost a time capsule. This capsule, the time capsule in Iran, remained totally unaffected by the hurricane of kufr that passed through the history of Iran.
برای که در قانون اساسی ما اینه که در همه جا هر ولی فقیهی که از جانب خبرگان تأیید شده اون رهبر رسمی مردمه و قدرت هم داره و میتواند این کار رو بکنه.
هذا وعد. هذا كلامي الآن. My talk right now will not take anything from my time afternoon. So I will have whole half hour. 5 minutes? No, thank you.
By the impact of the Islamic Revolution in Iran on the Islamic movement, we mean how far has the Islamic Revolution influenced the activities of the Islamic movement elsewhere outside Iran?
And that is precisely the issue. The revolutionary figure of the Prophet has faded away. His military and combatant nature does not exist anymore in the minds and hearts of the bulk of those who purport to follow him. Therein lies the task of rehabilitating the revolutionist character of our supreme guide and teacher, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله.
The Islamic Revolution is a total revolution. In the first round of the revolution, only the primary goals must be achieved in a very short time. If I may restate the primary achievements of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, these are: 1, the total defeat of kufr in all its dimensions, especially its political, military, and economic power. 2, the setting up of an Islamic state and its institutions under the leadership of an imam. 3, the transformation of the society from jahiliyyah to taqwa. And 4, the relentless prosecution of the war against the internal and external enemies of Islam. The primary achievements of the Islamic Revolution are precisely in line with the Sunnah and Seerah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A unique feature of the primary goals and achievements of the Islamic Revolution in Iran is its complete objective and empirical basis. If kufr has been defeated, then that defeat must be obvious. If an Islamic state has been established, then that fact must be obvious. If a society's normal condition has changed from corruption to taqwa, then the transformation must be visible. If war is being waged against external enemies, then this must be obvious from the war. The preparation for jihad or the Islamic State's attitudes towards the enemies of Islam. The second unique feature of the primary goals of the Islamic Revolution is that no Muslim, whatever his fiqh, whatever his school of thought, can deny their validity. No Muslim can deny that the need to eradicate kufr from Muslim society. No Muslim can deny the need to establish an Islamic state led by an Imam Khalifa. No Muslim can deny the need to end corruption and immorality and make the society muttaqi. And no Muslim can deny the need to wage jihad against the enemies of Islam and the Islamic State. Having achieved these primary goals, every Muslim society is free to define its secondary goals in terms of its own school of thought and other social, economic, and political preferences allowed within Islam. In this framework, the wahda of the Ummah becomes simply a matter of the common pursuit of the primary goals of the Ummah, and the instrument of this pursuit is the Islamic movement. The Islamic State, like any other state, any other organized effort, may suffer failure of policy, mistake of policy, failure to achieve short-term goals. Even the presence of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam among the Muslims did not prevent the occurrence of such failure. This was most dramatically demonstrated at the Battle of Uhud. The primary achievements in the Islamic State of Iran, of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, are the output of the Islamic movement in Iran. We have to look for the input of the Islamic movement in Iran. Fortunately, the ulama in Iran represented almost a time capsule. This capsule, the time capsule in Iran, remained totally unaffected by the hurricane of kufr that passed through the history of Iran. And these ulama of Iran were able to emerge from this time capsule, take the people of Iran in their hands, and lead them to a total victory over kufr.
القرآن الكريم والكتاب السماوي الذي جاء باختصار.
The Quran is the heavenly book which was sent down to organize life in a wise way and lead man, this weak creature, to a peaceful way of life. Many of the verses which are spoken in his name pertain to the revolutionary character of the Muslim people and the dynamics of life and its movements. As to the taghuts, the tyrants, they know, and we know too, that no good can be expected from them, and that they will not change their wrong attitudes unless an ummah emerges, opens its hearts to Allah, working for Him sincerely and sacrificing their lives for His sake. When Allah sees such hearts, which thus deserve His support, thereupon He orders the taghuts, the tyrants, to be eliminated, and His will shall be done. There are many people now fighting against Islam at its heart, that is in Iran. I mention in particular the Arabs whom Allah chose to carry the Islamic message, who fought the Persians in order to lead them to Islam. Now the same Arabs can be seen fighting the Persians on behalf of kufr.
نراهم اليوم يقاتلون الفرس من أجل الكفر.
We are very fortunate to have among us a very senior alim from Qum, Ayatollah Ibrahim Amini. Agha Amini is now going to present a paper on the roots of the Islamic Revolution in the Quran. Agha Amini.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إذا نحن قمنا بدراسة الأوضاع العامة التي كان سكان الجزيرة العربية.
If we study the general situation in which the people of the Arabian Peninsula lived before Islam, and we look at the effect Islam had on their lives, we realize that all that was an Islamic revolution in every sense of the word. This raises several questions. Where are the roots of such revolutions in Islam and in the Prophet's Sunnah? And what factors contributed to the Muslim victories at the dawn of Islam? We need to know the answers to learn the lessons. What did Imam Khomeini, the leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution, learn from the revolution that occurred at the dawn of Islam to enable him to turn the Islamic Ummah in Iran into a strong Ummah which trains martyrs and stands up to all the great Taghuti powers of the East and the West? Two factors in particular influenced the early Muslims and led them to victory. First, the unity of Muslims, and second, the participation of all the Muslims in jihad to confront kufr and shirk.
The Muslim's article of faith begins with a denial. The word la, which is the first word uttered by any Muslim, is a break with the prevailing anti-Islamic conditions and circumstances. It is not a theoretical vote of no confidence, which in many cases only enhances the position of a democratic status quo. It is a word that follows, not precedes, the attitude and intention to destroy man's will in the overall structure of Taghut as well as the Taghut itself. فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوِثْقَى. It was this determination to abolish the material manifestation of Taghut in its political, military, economic, social, psychological, cultural, etc. forms that bespeaks and highlights the lessons, texts, discourses, and instructions of the Quran and Sunnah. War was waged against this resolute determination throughout history. Never do we detect in the Quran and the Sunnah that messengers, prophets, and apostles were fought because of their idealism. They were fought because of their realism. In the many narratives in the Quran, Musa was not on the Pharaonic establishment's wanted list because he was a person with an alternative set of canons or a substitute set of laws. He was wanted by the king of Egypt because the laws Musa had were the structural maintenance of the only system sanctioned by Allah for the human species. Ibrahim alayhi salam was not a transcendental guru hopping from one land to another to win over some spiritual weaklings. He wasn't thrown into the fire or the execution chamber of that day because he wanted the people to be pious and righteous citizens of the powers that be. He was to be incinerated because he was a threat to the national security of Nimrud. He, as did all the emissaries of Allah, carried within his bosom the unyielding determination to topple the Taghut. This uncompromising, revolutionary, and daring spirit motivated and oriented all the pre- and post-Ibrahimic prophets. It was this divine revolutionary drive that forced them all, at one time or another, into execution chambers, exile, political refuge, poverty, excommunication, banishment, alienation, prison, ridicule, assassination attempts, and a crucifixion bid, etc. Take today's political and intelligence climate. Where do we find the monks, gurus, evangelists, popes, cardinals, rabbis, and priests on the wanted lists of their respective governments? Where will you find qadis, shaykhs, mullahs, murshids, dervishes, and muftis on the wanted list? You will not, because they do not have the revolutionary impetus of Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, and Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam. The clash led by Quraysh against the Islamic political and military emergence was natural, because the decision maker alayhi salatu wassalam was intent on popularizing the divine doctrinal belief, and he was, for all practical purposes, declaring an ideological war against the Qurayshi establishment. The ideological belief expounded by Muhammad alayhi salam was by its very nature the antithesis of a multi-power, multi-master, and multi-divine Mecca. The ideological war initiated by the Prophet was a revolt against the value system and its legal system simultaneously. There can be no second thoughts about it. The revolutionary spirit did not spare the royalty and the majesty of Quraysh. This revolutionary commitment denigrated Quraysh's futuristic visions. It vilified their lords and repudiated their cheap life. The holistic injustice of Quraysh was held in contempt. The revolutionary language of the Quran is unmistakable. It frankly, as a revolutionary guide always is, assails them by saying, إِنَّكُمْ وَمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ حَصَبُ جَهَنَّمْ أَنْتُمْ لَهَا وَارِدُونَ. The divine revolutionary, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, was ordered by Allah to arouse the mu'mins to do combat. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّبِيِّ حَرِّضِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ عَلَى الْقِتَالِ. Those who compromise their revolutionary and military momentum during combat are warned and threatened. This is their ultimatum. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا لَقِيتُمُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا زَحْفًا فَلَا تُوَلُّوهُمُ الْأَدْبَارَ وَمَنْ يُوَلِّهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ دُبُرَهُ إِلَّا مُتَحَرِّفًا لِقِتَالٍ أَوْ مُتَحَيِّزًا إِلَى فِئَةٍ فَقَدْ بَاءَ بِغَضَبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَمَأْوَاهُ جَهَنَّمُ وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرُ. These ayahs and many more in the Quran are enough to shatter the static, dormant, inactive and dull figure of a passive super preacher and moralist known as Muhammad. This revolutionary example for all Muslims participated in 27 military battles and expeditions. Let us take a glimpse of this revolutionary model on the day of Uhud. The Prophet's tooth was broken on the day of Uhud. His face was cut and blood was running therefrom. He was wiping his blood and saying, "How can these people succeed when they shed the blood and stain the face of an envoy calling them to their Lord?" The serious and assertive prophetic mentality ordered the execution of 400 counter-revolutionaries belonging to Bani Qurayza. Revolutionary integrity in the beloved heart of our leader made it possible for him to personally eliminate a kafir by the name of Ubay ibn Khalaf. The Prophet's policy to his commanders during the conquest of Mecca was that they should not kill anyone unless the others are intent on killing the Muslims. But there were several who the Prophet wanted to execute even if they were found within the sanctuary of the Kaaba. Among them were Abdullah ibn Sa'ad, Abdullah ibn Khatal, and two of his women singers who often sang songs of rhythmic diatribes against the Prophet. The Prophet ordered them killed in addition to others. His words still ring in the justice-seeking and struggling revolutionaries. Kill them even if you find them hiding behind the curtains of the Kaaba. All of the above policies and actions taken by the loved one, peace be upon him, are subject to the outcry of international organizations, human rights associations, and the rest of Western civilization's political rubric. Even the conventional minds of traditional Islam would question this revolutionary portrait of the Prophet in the Quran. Muhammadun Rasulullah walladhina ma'ah ashidda'u 'ala al-kuffar ruhama'u baynahum. And that is precisely the issue. The revolutionary figure of the Prophet has faded away. His military and combatant nature does not exist anymore in the minds and hearts of the bulk of those who purport to follow him. Therein lies the task of rehabilitating the revolutionist character of our supreme guide and teacher, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
ومن المسائل الأساسية التي شكلت مرتكزا رئيسيا للنظام الجديد ومكنت الثورة من تخطي جميع المشاكل والعراقيل والدعايات المغرضة.
Among the basics which represent an essential framework for the new regime and enable the revolution to surmount all the impediments was the adoption of a constitution which was ratified by the overwhelming majority of the people. The concept of Wilayat al-Faqih in this constitution upset the anti-revolutionaries who have been bent on causing trouble and who showed their determination to fight the concept. But why? It is because the revolution was led by the Faqih, and under his leadership, colonialism was uprooted and the Taghuti regime toppled. The Islamic government was set up on this strong foundation and will remain a bulwark against foreign pressures. For this reason, we find it necessary to survey the question of Wilayat al-Faqih. This term and its derivatives are among the terms most used in the Quran. Its first meaning is supervision and leadership. But it has another meaning too, love and victory. In the context of an Islamic government, it pertains to the act of supervising, leading, giving the ideal example to the Ummah and educating it in the best way. There are four sorts of wilayah. Firstly, the wilayah of Allah. Secondly, the wilayah of the Messenger of Allah. Thirdly, the wilayah of the Imams. And fourthly, the wilayah of the Faqih. In fact, the wilayah of Faqih is taken from the wilayah of the Imam, which in turn is taken from the wilayah of the Messenger, and this in turn is taken from the wilayah of Allah. It can be seen, therefore, that the wilayah of Allah is the basis in the Islamic system of government.
وهذه بدورها تستمد من ولاية الرسول وهي بدورها أيضا تستمد من ولاية الله تعالى فولاية الله هي الأساس في النظام الإسلامي للحياة.
In the general discussion at the end of the first day, one of the issues raised was the Iran-Iraq war. The chairman took up the question.
A great deal of crocodile tears are being shed in this direction. Our brothers in Palestine have been killed systematically for 50 years, and you never hear about it. And of course, you have our own countries kill more people in our own countries through their tyranny every year than perhaps this war has caused in over 4 years. And we never hear about it. The Pahlavi dynasty over 50 years destroyed the economy of Iran more than anything else has done. And you never heard about it. That was described as development and modernization. Today we have the Soviet army occupying Afghanistan. We are all very concerned with Afghanistan. But America is occupying the peninsula of Arabia just as much as the Soviet Union is occupying Afghanistan. But no one is concerned about liberating the peninsula of Arabia from the Americans. So our economies are being destroyed. We Muslims are oppressed. Every day, everywhere, all parts of the world. This war is really a very small scale explosion of this kind of thing that we have suffered over 200-300 years. So please, let us take the whole thing in a great perspective. And I do believe really that peace is something that we cannot afford. If we want to change this world, we'll have to fight to change this world. Nobody is going to let us change this world simply because the Quran says change it. The Quran says change it, and the Quran also says fight to change it.
کشور ایران با اینکه اسلامی است و می‌داند که سایر کشورها
The question asked is, as all the other countries are only claiming to be Islamic and their governments are not really Islamic, why does Iran have relations with them? Iran is a country with a population of 40 million in a world in which everyone needs others for survival. Iran, like every other country, wants to live in this world with its trading system. This is not to say that Iran's main goal has been forgotten. The aim is still to implement Islam universally. In order to achieve this goal, Iran must have contact with other countries. The point to remember is that Islamic Iran, though not in agreement with governments of Muslim countries, has no disagreement with, no hostility towards the Muslim masses in those countries.
اسلامی به ارتباط به این اعتباره که خب این ارتباط به نفع مردم مسلمان این کشور هاست.
Sheikh Asad will speak on the divine assistance to the Islamic movement.
كونوا مع الله في أمركم كله في الليل في النهار لا ينصر الله إلا الربانيين.
Be with Allah night and day. God will give victory only to those who side with Him. The Islamic movements have not been successful because they have not attained the level expected of them by Allah. Allah gives victory to those who are with Him. That is why He gave victory to Imam Khomeini and his followers, but not to nationalist leaders before him. As for those who seek victory but have despaired of Allah's help and are looking for victory with Michel Aflaq and the Iraqi Baathists, how can they claim to be Muslims and respect Islam? How can they expect victory with the help of the kuffar when they do not get it from Allah? A Muslim cannot think this way, and he who does cannot claim to represent or lead the Islamic movement.
إذا لم ينصرك الله فتبحث عن النصر عند الكفار. ما هذا؟ كيف هذا التفكير الإسلامي؟ ثم تزعم أنك الحركة الإسلامية الرائدة؟ ما هذا يا قوم؟ الله أكبر الله
أكبر. Learning. University Jihad has presently 2 members in HCCR. They have also members in the Executive Board of Universities, and they have the basic share of the important task of Islamization of universities. In addition, some research work is undertaken by University Jihad. The universities have helped a great deal in solving the technical problems of the war and also in the making of spare parts and suitable medicines. Whatever universities did upon this way was done by University Jihad. In addition, these young people have given a great number of martyrs for the revolution, and their name will be remembered forever.
السياسة الخارجية. انتهجت الجمهورية الإسلامية سياسة مستقلة قائمة على أساس لا شرقية ولا غربية، وحققت عدة مكتسبات منها إلغاء الاتفاقيات والمعاهدات الاستعمارية.
The Islamic Republic of Iran has an independent foreign policy which stands neither for the East nor for the West, and which has already achieved much. It has repudiated many agreements and treaties with foreign powers, such as the 1959 agreement with the United States, which gave the US the right to interfere in Iran's affairs. The 5th and 6th clauses of the 1921 treaty with the Soviet Union, which gave the Russians the right to interfere militarily in Iran, and the law on foreign privileges, which deprived Iran of the right to try Americans for crimes committed in Iran. Islamic Iran has abrogated the CENTO Treaty, severed economic and military relations with America, and expelled 100,000 American advisors. Iran has also cancelled all major agreements made by the Shah's regime for the purchase of British, French, and German arms, which were designed to drain the economy and make Iran dependent on the superpowers. All economic, military, and political relations with Israel and the racist regime of South Africa have also been broken. Iran has opposed the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan and recognized the international liberation movements, particularly the revolutionary Islamic movements like those in Eritrea, the Philippines, Afghanistan, Patani, and Palestine. A Palestinian embassy has been opened in Iran. These are just a few steps taken by Islamic Iran, which in the last 5 years have demonstrated the ability of Islam and the Muslim Ummah to succeed in its struggle against the world's Taghut powers. It is very clear that the Islamic government of Iran has taken many steps in developing its relations with the Ummah outside. Those who dreamt that the imposed war or the fall of Bani Sadr or the crimes of the Munafiqeen Khalq and other terrorists against the people of Iran would destroy the Islamic government are now all looking to their Arab idols for help.
يبحثون عن أخطاء الأصنام العربية في منهج التحليل التي كانت تقودهم في ظلالهم.
Every revolution, whether Islamic or not, has difficulties and problems of its own that are its natural necessity. In this article, we do not mention this kind of the general problems of every revolution, and are only looking for difficulties and problems peculiar to an Islamic revolution that is supposed to take place in a Muslim country. Now, we outline a series of events that we should logically expect to occur following the victory of an Islamic revolution. 1. The first expectation that we should have from an Islamic revolution and its consequent Islamic government is that such a revolution and government cannot be contained in and adapted to any of the world's current cultural and political frameworks. If we believe in Islam as an independent culture, then the government rising from this independent culture will also have principles, policies, and special customs and formalities of its own, which will not be similar or consistent with what has become prevalent in the world through the Eastern and Western domination. One example to be mentioned is the Western attitude toward the social role of the religion and the role of the religious scholars with respect to political and governmental affairs. It is evident that, at least at the beginning and for some time, this matter will cause the non-Muslim masses and even some groups of westernized Muslims to think of it as a strange system and to escape from it due to the contrast that it has vis-a-vis the current familiar forms, and even to take opposite position against it and make negative prejudgments due to this very difference and unfamiliarity. This matter will cause us to have difficulty in introducing our principles, manners, standards, and customs to the non-Muslim masses of the world. Therefore, we should be ready to face such problems and have enough courage and boldness to live in a world where many people do not understand us and our opinions, acts, and manners for some time. 2. With the victory of an Islamic revolution, we should naturally expect the Eastern and Western governments and superpowers employ all their equipments, experiences, and abilities to defeat it. One of the ways of the imperialism to fight against such a revolution is to impose sanctions on it, either officially declared or implemented practically in a hidden and unofficial manner. The West has dominated the Muslim country's economy through political influence for some decades, has made the production and consumption system and the agriculture and industry of these countries so much dependent on itself that it has in fact their economic bottleneck in hand and can paralyze their economy whenever it wishes by not buying and selling raw materials and agricultural and industrial products, and by irregularly increasing or decreasing prices. Whenever it desires to impose pressure on a country, it can recall its experts and technicians in charge of installing and operating Western factories from that country. Imperialism hopes to cause poverty, high costs, public dissension, and consequently political disturbance in a country that wants to liberate itself from foreign domination by paralyzing its economy and thereby preparing grounds to overthrow a government that intends to disobey the superpowers. 3. If an Islamic revolution emerges victorious in a Muslim country, global imperialism will attempt to overthrow the young government of that country and defeat the revolution by intervening in its internal affairs through the following manner. Imperialism always has some mercenaries and supporters in the Muslim countries who are mostly dependent on the regime overthrown by the revolution. They who have lost their power and wealth as a result of the revolution will attempt to fight against the new revolutionary government.
الأساس الشرعي للحكم الإسلامي في إيران ولاية الفقيه. تنص المادة الثانية في الدستور الإسلامي لجمهورية إيران الإسلامية على ما يلي: الجمهورية الإسلامية هي نظام يقوم على قاعدة الإيمان بالله الأحد واختصاص الحاكمية والتشريع.
The legal religious foundation of the government of Iran is the Wilayat al-Faqih. The second article of the constitution reads The Islamic Republic is a system based upon faith in the following: monotheism, as reflected in the phrase, "There is no God but God," His sovereignty and His legislation of the law, and the necessity of surrender to His command. The divine revelation and the basic foundation of it in expressing the laws. Resurrection and its constructive role in the evolution of human beings towards God. Divine justice in creation and divine laws. Imamate and the positive leadership and its sensitive role in the continuity of the Islamic Revolution. The fifth article states, during the time when the 12th Imam, may God expedite his appearance, is in occultation, in the Islamic Republic of Iran, the leadership of the affairs and guidance of the people is the responsibility of a just and pious jurisprudent, aware of the times, courageous, of drive and initiative, whom the majority of the people know and accept to be their leader. In case no such jurisprudent has a majority, a leadership council consisting of jurisprudents meeting the above requirements will assume the same responsibility. According to the fifth paragraph in Article 2, the basic religious law of the Islamic Republic is that of the Imamate. The Imamate, according to the Shias, is one of the pillars of faith. As for the Imam, he is appointed by Allah, not nominated or elected by the people. 12 Imams have been chosen in all, the last being Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi, who disappeared in the year 261. In his absence, how can there be the continued leadership mentioned in the second article of the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Iran? There are two possible ways. First, the belief that Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi is not dead, but merely in ghaba and will return. Second, the belief in the Walayat al-Faqih during the period of absence. While many Shia ulama have discussed this concept, it is Imam Khomeini who has elaborated it in great detail. He presented evidence about it, explained all its aspects, and went on to implement it. Imam Khomeini's explanation of the Walayat al-Faqih in the context of the Islamic government is that Allah is the ruler and the legislator, and the Prophet and the Imams implement Allah's rule. About the Ghaiba, he says, today there is no appointed person to run the government. Do we leave Islamic laws unimplemented or govern ourselves according to Islam? Do we say about Islam that it came to rule for 2 centuries only? Do we say that Islam neglects the organization of the state? We know that the absence of Islamic rule means the loss of Muslim lands and the abandonment of our interests and our rights. Is this allowed in our religion? Is the government necessary for life, or is it not? Although no statement is made regarding deputation to the Imam during his absence, there exist, nevertheless, religious legal characteristics which, if met by a person, qualify him for the leadership of the Ummah. These requirements are a knowledge of law and a knowledge of justice, which are met by most of the fuqaha of our time. If a just and knowledgeable alim sets up an Islamic government, he must govern by emulating the Prophet, and people must listen to him and obey him. Yet, in the case where the establishment of the Islamic rule is not possible, the wilaya is not nullified because the fuqaha are made wali by Allah. It is incumbent on the faqih to act under his wilaya as much as he can. He must use the khums, the kharaj, and the jizya in the interest of the Muslims. He must also observe the limits imposed by Allah.
فيجب على الفقيه أن يعمل بموجب ولايته قدر المستطاع، فعليه أن يأخذ الخمس والخراج والجزية إن استطاع، لينفق كل ذلك في مصالح المسلمين، وعليه إن استطاع أن يقيم حدود الله.
The question of leadership and Walayat al-Faqih also came up during the panel discussion.
مسئله دیگری که این برادرمون فرمودن این بود که یکی از
Referring to the power of the leader to dismiss the president if he is unqualified or has failed in his responsibilities, as was the case with Bani Sadr, such power is exercised by the present leader, Imam Khomeini. future leaders will also be able to exercise this right, since in our constitution it is specified that the faqih elected by the people or the assembly of experts, which is also elected by the people, would be the official leader and so have this power. You must understand that these experts are highly respected ulama from the provinces who are elected directly by the people. The leader would be the choice of the people and would be supported by them. We hope that inshallah Imam Khomeini will have a long life in which to promote the revolution to all Muslim lands. The point raised by the enemies of the Islamic Revolution, that after the Imam there will be no one invested with his power to continue this leadership, is totally false. Our constitution is clear on this. The powers and rights specified for the leader can be exercised at any time by any person chosen for the task.
قدرت دارد و میتواند کشور اسلام را اداره کند و رئیس جمهور را هم میتواند عزل کند و نصب کند و هر چه که هست اختیارات خودش میتونه این کار را انجام بده.
A few comments about a subject that was raised from the floor yesterday. This is the subject of Islamization programs now underway in some Muslim countries. First and foremost point that has to be understood clearly is that no part of Islam can be established or enforced by a leader who is not the Imam of the Ummah. Any government, any man who becomes a ruler by a route other than that of Islam has no authority whatsoever of enforcing any part of Islam. The same goes, of course, for rulers whose regimes are in any way subservient to the superpowers, to kufr, receiving military and economic aid, and so on and so forth. Regimes that are subservient themselves cannot establish Islam, cannot even claim to establish Islam, cannot have no right even to talk about Islam. The only form of Islam that the enemies of Islam will allow is the form that is now on offer in countries like Pakistan and Sudan, or that exists in such countries as Saudi Arabia and Egypt and so on and so forth. This is the subservient Islam I was talking about yesterday. The officially launched Islamization programs of the military regimes in Pakistan and Sudan are very cunningly conceived attempts at preventing the political assertion of Islam by Islam itself. The implementation of such measures as the hudud are designed, in fact, to create hatred against Islam, to wean the people away from Islam by presenting Islam as unjust, as an Islam that cuts the hands of the poor while the rich wallow in their ill-gotten gains. No version of Islam and Islamization that presents an acceptable face of Islam, acceptable that is to the enemies of Islam, is any part of Islam. Islam is the complete truth and must be implemented by an Islamic movement which is led by an Imam, and a movement which overthrows a secular regime, a secular political system in existence, and in its place creates an entirely Islamic political, economic, social and cultural system, as has been done in Iran. Islamization by secular regimes is an exercise in trying to fool all of the people all of the time.
أيها المسلم، ما اكتسبوا أراضينا وما استعبدونا إلا بعد أن فرقوا جمعنا وشتتوا شملنا باسم العربية والعجمية وباسم السنة والشيعة وباسم الطائفية والعنصرية.
O Muslims, the enemies of Islam occupied our land and turned us into slaves only after they had divided us under the name of Arabs and non-Arabs, under the name of Sunni and Shia, and under sectarianism and racism. Is it possible that we live free, liberate our lands and control our wealth without clothing our ranks and be united against our enemies? Can't we see the world's superpowers acting in collusion to emphasize the differences between the Shias and the Sunnis? Is it possible to stand up to them without uniting all the Muslims and without using their combined resources? Do you Muslims know that what led to the success of the Islamic Revolution in Iran was the unity of the Iranian people?
واستخدمت جميع إمكانياتها. أيها المسلمون كما تعلمون بأن أكبر سبب نجاح الثورة في إيران ما هو إلا وحدة الشعب المسلم في إيران. هل يمكن اتحاد السنة والشيعة ما أن توجد بينهما مسائل خلافية كثيرة؟ والجواب نعم. أولا، لأن المسائل الأصولية مشتركة بين الشيعة والسنة كإيمان بالله تعالى والكتاب والنبوة واليوم الآخر وما أحله الله.
Is unity possible between the Shias and the Sunnis, bearing in mind that they have many disagreements and other problems? The answer is yes, because the Shias and the Sunnis agree on such basic issues as faith in Allah, the Holy Book, prophethood, the Day of Judgment, the things Allah makes clear in the Quran, what is halal and what is haram, the duties such as fasting, paying zakat, performing Hajj, etc. The disagreements are only on matters of ijtihad, and it is not permitted by Islam to make ijtihad a reason for disunity and animosity between the Sunnis and the Shias. Similarly, it is not permitted to use it as a factor for disunity between mujtahideen and the fuqaha in the same madhab. There was disagreement over ijtihad between the followers of Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf, and Imam Muhammad, may the blessings of God be upon them, within the same madhab, Hanafi, and also between the different madhahib such as Shafi'i, Hanbali, and Maliki. Whereas there are disagreements over many points between these mujtahideen, without there being hatred or animosity between them, it can be seen that these differences do not affect the relations between the Muslims. In fact, if the disagreements are over personal ijtihad, without hatred and conflict, it can be a healthy influence. Among the followers of the Prophet, we can find disagreements in many matters of ijtihad. There are many differences in ijtihad between the Shias and the Sunnis, both regarding them as equally important. The correct solution under these circumstances is for each side to respect the other's view without dismissing it as wrong. Each side can continue to use its own way without condemning the other's way. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to unite the Muslims, to raise high Allah's word all over the world.
من المسائل الهامة والحل السلمي في هذه المسائل القليلة جدا أن يحترم كل واحد من السنة والشيعة رأي الآخر من غير أن ينسبه إلى الضلالة ويعمل برأيه ما لم يظهر له بالدليل بأن الرأي الآخر صحيح. أرجو من الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يوحد الشعوب الأمة الإسلامية لإعلاء كلمة الله في أنحاء العالم وأن يحفظنا من مؤامرات شياطين الإنس والجن. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
To begin with, two terms need to be defined. One is the Ummah, and the other is the Islamic movement. By the Ummah, we mean the body of the Muslims the world over, as they exist, whether weak or strong, whether they are leading or they are led, whether they are united or they are scattered. All the same, the Muslim world represents the Ummah. Also, whether they have one leader and a central authority or they lack it, it's all the same, they are movement. And I mean, they are the Ummah. Also, the Ummah does not represent the parcel of land upon which the Muslim live. It represents the people. And the other word, Islamic movement, refers to those individuals and groups of people who are fighting to restore back to the Ummah its own dignity, who are fighting, in other words, to establish the deen of Allah as it should be, to make the Ummah what it should be. This is the Islamic movement. And like the Ummah, the Islamic movement is also one. We cannot have Islamic movements, just like we cannot have Muslim Ummahs. As one movement, the Islamic movement should have one leader. And since already, Alhamdulillah, Allah has shown a leader for the Islamic movement in this century, it remains for other organizations and associations and Islamic welfare institutions and Islamic welfare organizations to decide whether they are part of the movement or not by accepting the leadership of the leader of the Islamic movement and therefore the leader of the Ummah as a whole. And that person I'm referring to, we all know, is the person of Imam Khomeini.
هل يمكننا أن نعلن الإمام خميني كزعيم وقائد للحركة الإسلامية في كل أرجاء الأمة الإسلامية؟
Who would like to answer the question? Anybody? Answer Lamini? Did you hear the question? Okay. Would you like
انه ماذا؟ هو يريد ان لماذا الخميني ما اعلن نفسه كامام للامه الاسلاميه ويجب ان يخرج مش بالنسبه للشيعه فقط في ايران لكل الامه الاسلاميه عشان يتبعوا الناس. اعان الله الخميني على مشكلته.
Sheikh Asad al-Tamimi answering a question on the role of Imam Khomeini as the leader of the Ummah.
الشيعة وسنديان السنة. الشيعة كما قلت بالأمس.
May Allah help Khomeini with his problems. He has now fallen between the hammer of the Shia and the anvil of the Sunni. The Shia, as I said yesterday, have to wait until the hidden Imam returns to change society. But Imam Khomeini used his mind, his faith and his understanding to get around this problem by using the concept of Wilayat al-Faqih. Some of the Sunni people wonder why he didn't announce himself as a Khalifa so that the Muslims give him bay'ah. I have often discussed this matter. I said, you don't know history and Khomeini's background. If, on the other hand, Imam Khomeini had announced himself as the Imam, the Shia people would have revolted against him because by doing this, he would have destroyed the idea of waiting for the 12th Imam. So you have to forgive me for my candor. He announced himself as Imam of what we call the Islamic Republic. He is a great servant employed to run the state and its affairs in the absence of the awaited Imam. But things take their own natural course. Muslim people look up to Imam Khomeini to be the Imam. They are supporting him in their hearts because Muslims are not supporting their Taghut rulers. Muslims will never support any ruler who is not a Muslim and who is not ruling according to Islam. Muslims did not support a Ba'athist, nor did they accept Michel Aflaq, nor did they accept a Masonic person or those who were imposed by the conditions prevailing in the area when the Ottoman Empire was weak. These rulers made their way to power under the cover of darkness, and most of them have no known origins. Where did they come from? How did they arrive to power? For example, for many years, the Baathists of Syria didn't allow the name of the family to be written on the identity card, as this would show the person's origin and roots. This is why Cohen was able to become Prime Minister and almost President as well. You do not know where these rulers came from. The Islamic Revolution was surrounded by such people who were afraid that it would deliver its message. Imam Khomeini began to come near the Sunnis in practice. He restored the Jummah prayers and regular Jamaat prayers. He ordered the Shia to pray behind the Sunnis, and he ordered them on the day of Arafat to stand with the Sunnis. He ordered them not to raise issues which might create differences between Muslims. And we must support him against those Shia who disagree with him, and against the court ulama amongst the Sunnis who attack him. May Allah make him victorious.
أن يبايعوا حاكما من كان ومهما كان وهو لا يحكم بالإسلام والخميني عانه الله على من يخالفه من الشيعة وأعانه الله على علماء السلاطين من السنة ولا بد من نصر والسلام عليكم.
Our brothers will now distribute to you draft resolutions in Arabic and English. I take it in Arabic and English? In Arabic and English. So please ask for the language you want. A world seminar of ulama, scholars, teachers, writers, students and active members of the Islamic movement representing all schools of thought in Islam met in London from August 8 to 11, 1984 at the invitation of the Muslim Institute. This was the first seminar to be held to formulate the response of the Ummah to the Islamic Revolution in Iran. Over the 4 days, the seminar heard numerous papers presented by participants from all parts of the world. After careful consideration and discussion, the seminar reached the following conclusions. 1. The revolution in Iran is Islamic because it is rooted in and inspired by the Quran and Sunnah. The Muslim people of Iran have engaged in jihad and willingly accepted shahada in the way of Allah. This has enabled them to emerge victorious for Islam against all forms of kufr. This seminar supports the people of Iran in their continuous struggle to consolidate the revolution and the Islamic State, and in their jihad against the global power of kufr. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Second, the Islamic Revolution in Iran, by establishing an Islamic state, has again demonstrated conclusively that Islam is a complete guide for the ordering of collective affairs of the Ummah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Number 13, and lastly, this seminar calls upon the ulama, scholars, writers, journalists and other intellectuals of the Ummah to undertake systematic study and research to deepen and widen the understanding of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, its methods, achievements and goals. There now exists a worldwide Islamic movement. It is not a political party and it is not an organization. It has no name, it has only one name, and its name is Islam. It has no organization. yet it has a membership. And its membership is everyone who says, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. This seminar has proved that the Islamic Revolution is a new paradigm of Muslim thought, Muslim behavior, Muslim hopes, Muslim aspirations. This is not limited to any nationality, any race, any creed, or any one part of the world. This is global, this is instant, this is for everybody, this is for the old, for the young, the children, even for the unborn. There is no neutral position in Islam. If anybody thinks that he can take a neutral position or not commit himself just yet, then I am afraid we cannot accept that neutral position from anyone. Anyone who claims neutrality is against Islam. The partnership between the Islamic Revolution, the Islamic State of Iran, and the Islamic movement outside Iran has to be consummated, has to be made effective, has to be built brick by brick and in a dynamic fashion. I invite our brothers from Iran, the ulama of Iran, the government of Iran, the people of Iran to enter into this partnership with us. And we have the world at our feet, inshallah.
إن شاء الله أنا سأتكلم وأنتم ترددون ورائي. I'll talk and you repeat after me. One section by section إن شاء الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا إله إلا الله إلها واحدا ونحن له مسلمون لا إله إلا الله ولا نعبد إلا إياه مخلصين له الدين ولو كره المشركون لا إله إلا الله ربنا ورب آبائنا الأولين لا إله إلا الله